Good morning, everyone. My name is Marijn van Wezel. I work at Wikibase Solutions, and I'm going to be talking about Semantic MediaWiki and what risks are associated with it currently and the future outlook on the development of Semantic MediaWiki. Um, so let's begin by saying that Semantic MediaWiki is a very large extension. I ran some analytics, and the code base is over 355,000 lines of code, and that excludes whitespace and comments, spread over more than 3,000 files. Of those 355,000 lines of code, 217,000 are PHP, 18,000 are JavaScript, and about 110,000 are something else, JSON configurations, and some readmes. But most of it is PHP, as you can see. This makes it one of the largest MediaWiki extensions in existence, and it's only surpassed by some Wikimedia extensions such as Wikibase. But more importantly, large parts of this code base have been untouched for many years, for over 5 years now, and we'll see a graph in a bit. And also large parts are without proper documentation. Many parts of the project are understood by very little people, and this makes it difficult to implement new changes. Finally, there's a lack of institutional support, but this is improving with the recent open collective set up by Bernard, which is very nice, but it's still not enough. Um, let's look at this very interesting graph, which I'll explain. So we have two graphs. On the left side, you see code ownership, and on the right side, you see a burn down graph. The code ownership graph is probably the most interesting. You can see that at the beginning, there was very little code until MW James joined, which is this red blob that gradually increases over here. If we also look at the scale that we have here, we can see that in about 6 years' time, around 400,000 lines of code were added by MW James. And because this is a code ownership graph, this means that around 350,000 lines of code that were added by MW James have never been touched since they were added. So that means that about 75% of the extension is still only written by a person who is no longer involved with the project. This is also reflected in the burn down graph we see here on the right. So a burn down graph, how it works is that each of these colors represents a year, and the y-axis represents the amount of code, and the x-axis represents time. So if we look at the beginning, we just see that, for instance, in 2006, this represents the year 2006. Almost all of the code that was added in 2006 has since been updated. But the code that was added by MW James, which is this rather steep curve that we see here, almost all of the code is still in the project today. We can see this big drop here that I'm not 100% sure what caused that, but it's probably some reformatting. The fact that the code remains in the extension is not necessarily a super bad thing. It can have two reasons. The code is still stable and it works. Why would you update it? Or the code is able to benefit from certain changes, but no one really understands it, and therefore these changes are not made. My feeling is that it's a mix of both. The code is not terrible. It's pretty good code and it works quite well. But it's also understood by very little people, and I think it can benefit from certain changes. And this was also outlined in the talk we had on Tuesday about Bucket, and Jonathan explained that there are theoretically certain improvements that we can do, but which aren't done because no one really knows how to do them. As a side note, I created these charts using open source application called Hercules. Let's move on to the second maintenance risk, is that Semantic MediaWiki is very complicated. Semantic MediaWiki has many features, and it's unclear which features are actually used at all. The second problem is that these features are often interleaved in ways that in unexpected ways. This makes changes to the extension and to individual features more cumbersome to do, and especially large architectural changes such as those that such as the performance optimizations that Jonathan mentioned, or for the upcoming Parsoid migration, are extremely difficult. This is made even worse by the number of configuration variables and hooks that Semantic MediaWiki provides. Of course, this configuration is very nice. You can tweak it to whatever you like, but it also carries with it even more maintenance because you have to account for even more factors. Semantic MediaWiki is also quite slow, which was mentioned by Jonathan as well. So according to WeirdGloop, which is the company Jonathan works at, Semantic MediaWiki accounts for about 75% of all database writes. And while this could theoretically be optimized, like I already mentioned before, no one really knows how to do this. And especially because these performance optimizations require large architectural changes. So I want to compare Semantic MediaWiki a bit to a knitted castle. To change something on a knitted castle, you would have to untangle the whole, but what we ideally would want is some kind of castle made out of Lego, where we can easily swap components and change things as we like, and maybe even add custom things more easily on top of it. But that's currently just a dream. So what does the future for Semantic MediaWiki hold? I think as users of and developers of Semantic MediaWiki, we need to think critically about the future of its development. So there are a couple of options that I outline here. We can continue as is. This is the easiest option. But there are also growing risks, especially with the upcoming Parsoid migration. Next, we could refactor and simplify. This would be a significant effort and might even be impossible with the current state of Semantic MediaWiki. But this is already somewhat underway with the recent Open Collective, and it might be the easiest, and not the easiest, but the option that would satisfy the most people. Third, we could build something else or move to something completely new. This is, of course, also a very significant effort, and we need to think deeply about what kind of features we want to maintain, and we need to not make a second SMW and include a bunch of features that no one really uses. And finally, we can do something else, and I would like you to discuss this with others. But some considerations that you can make is who will maintain and fund the project, and what are the features that must be preserved in the core extension. Thank you for listening. This was my lightning talk.
So thanks for this. I think this is probably the most important talk of this conference by a pretty wide margin. And honestly, I think at some point we should have a much larger discussion, maybe at a future conference, I don't know the exact situation, about all of the issues you bring up. My specific question is, with regard to Parsoid, to what extent is that just a huge cliff that we have no idea how to recover from, both in terms of changes that are going to need to happen to the extension itself, and also changes to the usages, especially in-text annotations, that more legacy users of SMW are going to have to deal with?
Could you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard it. So it's still a bit unclear what kind of changes Parsoid will exactly bring. I recently wanted to migrate a very small extension to work with Parsoid, but I wasn't able to because there's no documentation on it. And I also don't think it's ready yet. But I think it's very unclear what kind of changes need to happen to make Semantic MediaWiki compatible with Parsoid. Of course, if we go back, the Semantic MediaWiki binds over 40 hooks, and I think maybe 10 or 20 of these hooks will disappear when Parsoid completely rolls out. So I don't know. Probably quite a large number of changes need to happen, but it's very unclear.
Okay, we have like 2 more questions. So.
Yeah, Marijn, thanks for bringing this up to the table. It's Alexander speaking. So I have maybe slightly different view. You have a KPI like saying there is a ton of untouched files with the conclusion that the code might be dead. could be the opposite, like code works well. It's a dangerous KPI, I would say. And the other thing you said, it's complicated, and I think it should be termed complex. Having 150 configuration variables is complex, but not necessarily complicated.
Right.
On the other hand, it's of course there are some corners that should take our attention, and I would again replicate that it's important to have good test coverage. That's something we should focus before we throw everything into the bin and trying to build it up from scratch or so. I think code coverage is the key to make this also stable in the future. And as we've seen in the last year, I would say, we saw that with the re-enabled code coverage and automated tests, we also attracted new developers that did massive changes on the code base, removing tons of deprecation and things. So I think that's important and also a key factor.
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned, the last 2 years have been really improving the development of SMW. So I think that's great. About what you said about the automated tests, I think automated tests are very useful to keep maintaining Semantic MediaWiki to see if everything still works. But I don't think it would help with reducing the current complexity of Semantic MediaWiki. Those are just not correlated, in my opinion.
Hello, Marijn. This is Bernard. I also have a comment. I have been very active for the last 5 years in trying to address the same problem that you have addressed. So I totally agree with you, but the thing is that the Semantic MediaWiki community has been spoiled by this one developer for a long time, and we have not learned to collaborate better on this issue for the last 5 years. Giving this talk from Wikibase is kind of a little bit strange, because there are sponsors in the room, companies that technically or financially support Semantic MediaWiki. Wikibase is not one of them, unfortunately, so I hope this is going to change. And the dimension of the problem also is much smaller than you think, because MW James had a development capacity of maybe 10 hours or 15 hours, let's say 20 hours a week. So if we cannot find 20 hours of developer resources, that would be ridiculous. So they are in the room already. We would just have to focus on, maybe, for example, and that this is something that you have contributed to. For example, Wikibase Netherlands uses a lot the Elasticsearch plugin, so you fixed problems in there. So this is your contribution. That's great. So others will have other contributions, and there will be no one person that has the control over the knowledge over the whole code. There's not one person in LibreOffice that knows every part of the code. So we have to overcome this problem by continuing to better collaborate with one another, being it developer resources or being it financial support, because there are companies who make profit off of Semantic MediaWiki and have done so for the last 20 years without contributing a lot back, and this has to change, obviously. So again, this is my invitation to, we try to have technical meetings where we would split work, but nothing followed. By then I set up the financial stuff, so there are things going on. So just everyone in the room, this is not only going to you in the Netherlands here, everyone in the room, we need to make this change, because no one is going to make it for us. If we don't change it, no one will, because there is no one developer that knows everything, and we will need to do that. So I invite you to do this, and I think we have made good progress with Alexander Gesin's contribution to the better code and test coverage, but there's still a lot to do, so let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so do I have time to reply quickly?
Very quick, because we're really out of time.
Yeah. So this talk was not meant as like a Semantic MediaWiki sucks or something. It was really meant as, okay, we need to really think about the future and how are we going to contribute. And I unfortunately don't make the financial decisions at Wikibase. Otherwise, I would have donated. But that's just to be clear.
Okay, we really need to continue with the program. So thank you everyone for your contributions to the discussion. I think it's an important discussion to have. And we will now switch to another topic concerning Wikibase.